This is the CJ Werleman Show.
Hello, it's your friend CJ, and in this week's episode, we look at why Turkey is preparing for war against Israel, a war of Israel's choosing that will ultimately result only in the total destruction of the Zionist project forever. But first, please remember to like and subscribe to our show, while not forgetting to turn your notifications on so you never miss a single episode. Now let's get into it. It's been nearly 1 full year since we forewarned Israel had set itself on a path to war against Turkey over diverging and competing interests in Syria, where Ankara is providing diplomatic, financial and military support to the new Syrian government, while at the same time Israel sponsors a Druze-led insurgency with the aim of breaking up the now unified Arab country into competing ethnic blocs, therefore putting in motion a 6-decade-long Zionist strategy of sowing chaos, division and bloodshed among neighbouring countries in order to keep them weak, demoralised and divided.
After a brief reprieve in the Middle East following the devastating war between Israel and Iran, tensions are again rising, this time between Israel and Syria.
قصف يا شباب قصف جديد قصف جديد يا شباب قصف جديد ما بنهيئة الأركان خالص قصف جديد يا شباب قصف خذونا بسرعة بسرعة.
Israel launched strikes in retaliation to Syrian attacks on the minority Arab Druze and Christians in Syria.
Our regular viewers will remember that we predicted Israel would turn its attention to Turkey after it had first dragged the United States into a war against Iran. A prediction that's coming to fruition now, that the Zionist Crusader war against Iran has turned out to be a catastrophic failure, given Trump has rebuked Israel by choosing against toppling the Iranian government or dismantling its ballistic missile program. This is a total disaster for Israel, because from its perspective, any peace deal, negotiation, or even pause in fighting represents another nail in the coffin for the greater Israel project. Because stealing and colonizing more Arab land will remain a distant fantasy if the Zionist army is unable to vanquish the two most powerful militaries in the region, meaning Iran, Turkey, or both. Which is why Israel is suddenly obsessed with attacking Turkey.
I think that Turkey of Erdogan and Syria of Bashar are now far more concerning than Iran. The era of the Shiite empire of Iran, Assad, Syria, and Hezbollah is over. The new axis is the Muslim Brotherhood axis of Erdogan's Turkey, Syria, and Qatar. And it's better to get awake and to open your eyes now before it is too late.
יהיה לו את אותם מטוסים כולנו.
ארדואן אדם מסוכן מאוד. טורקיה בהובלתו היא איום משמעותי מאוד על מדינת ישראל. אני קודם כל רוצה לומר לך ולאזרחי מדינת ישראל, אנחנו נערכים למול האיום הזה במגוון רחב של דברים.
Israeli leaders are banging the drums for war against Turkey for a few obvious reasons. Starting with a need to create a new enemy to replace Iran, a desire to dominate Syria and Lebanon, and to drive a wedge between the United States and its allies. If Israel wants a war with Turkey, then it's a war Israel will get. And it's a war it will sorely lose, given the Zionist army is no match for the far superior Turkish armed forces, which are now, at this very moment, actively preparing for this increasingly probable conflict, one that will absolutely and totally destroy the state of Israel. But before we reveal how Turkey has the power and capability to end the Zionist state, it's important to first understand Israel's main objective here, which is to drive a wedge between the US and its allies so that the United States remains dependent on the Zionist state as a forward operating base for future military operations in the Middle East. You see, what Israel fears more than anything else is to be abandoned by the US politically and militarily. But abandonment is exactly what's happening to Israel right now, as the US cuts the Zionist state adrift in a manner and speed that has caught the entire Middle East off guard and by surprise. The United States has not only kicked Israel and Netanyahu to the side of the road, but it's also reorganizing the entire region under the guidance of Trump's closest geopolitical friend Turkey's President Recep Erdogan, as reported widely by the international media, and as stated by Trump himself, who made no secret of his personal feelings and sudden shift in US foreign policy objectives at last week's NATO summit.
But there are a couple I don't like much. I like Erdogan. I'll tell you, I like President Erdogan. He rolled out the red carpet. He's terrific. You know, he could have gone into the war. A lot of people saying, like with Bibi, I like Bibi. I think Bibi was a terrific wartime prime minister. But Bibi said rough things yesterday about Turkey and Erdogan. And I said, you know, I spoke to him. I said, he could have gone into the war because he doesn't like Israel much. And he doesn't like Bibi much. And he didn't go because of me. And this is a military power. Millions of soldiers. Turkey is very strong. They have a lot of our best equipment. They're trying to get the F-35s. But he didn't go in. He wanted it. He would go in. If it weren't for me, he would have gone in. And he would have been on the other side.
Notice how Trump referred to Netanyahu in the past tense, saying he was, not is, a great wartime leader. This is the US president saying out loud that Israel represents the past and Turkey the future of US foreign policy objectives. This is America announcing its divorce with Israel on live TV, a divorce predicated on the American public's growing hostility towards Israel and the United States' evolving strategic interests in the region, which now run diametrically opposed to the interests of Israel, therefore representing a fatal blow to the future survival of the Zionist state. Starting with the lifting of US sanctions against Turkey and the removal of Syria from the US government's state sponsor of terrorism list, which means Turkish construction firms and defense contractors can start investing billions of dollars into the new Syrian state, therefore undermining and countering Israel's effort to weaken, destroy, or carve up the Arab country.
לוודא שטורקיה לא מתבססת בסוריה, ואם טורקיה, אני אמרתי בקבינט, אם טורקיה תרצה להקים בסיסים בסוריה, גם אנחנו נקים בסיסים בסוריה. אז אני אשאל אותך.
Even more alarming for Israel is the proposed sale of F-35 fighter jets to Turkey, a US fighter jet program widely considered to be the world's most sophisticated weapons platform. A sale that promises to reshape the balance of power in the Middle East. Because when the United States shares its major weapons platforms and systems with an ally, it means the US wants to make joint military engagements more conducive, therefore indicating the presence of shared military objectives. A move that has shocked and outraged Israel, a move that has left Netanyahu utterly humiliated, as he's left with no other option than to protest against the F-35 deal on cable TV instead of directly with the White House.
The thing I'd like to say, because we're on the verge of the president's going to Turkey, look, Turkey is a great country, but it's governed by a man who calls openly for the annihilation of Israel. He occupies half of Cyprus, a NATO country. He's threatening Greece, another NATO country. And he talks openly about conquering Jerusalem. His foreign minister, his number two, said that the Jewish state hasn't a place among humanity. Basically, it has to be wiped out. His interior minister, said he looks forward to be the governor of Jerusalem. Well, for a regime infected by the Muslim Brotherhood, an extreme movement that hates America and chants death to America from that side of the spectrum, I don't think they should be given F-35s or the engines for their fighter jets, because that'll upset the power balance in the Middle East, which is ultimately guaranteed by Israeli air superiority and also by, I think, by America's posture in the Middle East.
This is Netanyahu trying desperately to win back the American support by scaremongering the American people with more lies and propaganda about Muslims, Islam, and the Muslim Brotherhood. But Americans have had enough, as illustrated in polls in recent statewide elections in which pro-Israel candidates are being trounced by their pro-Palestine rivals. Today, public support for the Zionist state is now a political career killer. The ongoing Israeli-led war against Iran, along with the genocide in Gaza, has finally led the American people and policymakers to come to a realization they should have come to decades ago. That the Zionist state is not a geopolitical asset. It's a strategic and economic liability that delivers the United States only economic pain, reputational damage, and humiliation in one failed war after another. With the Israeli-led war against Iran described as the greatest strategic blunder in US history, given it has effectively handed Tehran permanent control over the Strait of Hormuz, and with it, the fate of the US economy forever. It's for this reason among many that the country's top political leaders are now describing support for Israel as a strategic mistake.
For too long, American policy towards Israel operated under the assumption that the best thing Washington can do for Jerusalem is to blindly, to silently stand behind your government without conditions, without demands, without consequences, even when we disagreed.
The logic is simple to follow. The Zionist state is proven to be an economic and geopolitical liability, whereas Turkey checks all of America's boxes. It's already a NATO ally, and by far the most powerful military in the region, and more importantly, Turkey's strategic interests in the Middle East now overlap with those of the United States.
The Iran war was a clear setback to Israel's regional plans. But as night follows day, the political establishment in Israel has turned its sights on Turkey. This is a clearest sign that even if Israel had achieved regime change in Tehran, the war would not have stopped. It would simply have moved onto a different stage. So now Turkey has become the latest existential threat to Israel. As if in unison, a chorus of Israeli politicians has raised the alarm about a new Sunni axis opening up, composed of Turkey, Syria, and Qatar. This has not gone down well with Trump, who had little hesitation in laughing off the notion that his best friend, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, was an anti-Semitic dictator, as Netanyahu now claims. Erdogan is a great leader, a very strong person. Everything I've asked from him, he's done, Trump said. When Netanyahu said Israel's new security doctrine was to kill them first, Vance was even blunter. He said, "You're a country of 9 million people. You can't just kill your way out of solving every single national security problem." But Israel is as serious about setting on Turkey as it was about bombing Iran.
If a war breaks out between Turkey and Israel, the US will be forced to pick a side, and it will pick its NATO ally because America isn't completely stupid. It knows Israel is practically worthless and therefore easily disposable. And whereas Israel is a tiny strip of land defined by its lack of strategic depth and natural resources, Turkey, on the other hand, is a massive continent-bridging landmass with the second largest standing army in NATO and has total control over the Black Sea. And more importantly, Turkey controls the eastern Mediterranean naval lanes, because its navy outguns the Israeli navy by orders of magnitude. With its new amphibious assault ships, its rapidly expanding submarine fleet, and anti-ship cruise missiles, Turkey could establish an absolute naval blockade of Israel. And were Turkey to cut off Israel's access to maritime trade, it would completely suffocate and starve the Zionist colony, given more than 90% of its supplies move by sea. To be clear, a Turkish naval blockade would paralyze and kill the Zionist state's fuel, food, and supply chains within weeks. And adding to Israel's woes is the fact that Turkey has become an absolute drone superpower in the age of drone warfare. Its drones are so sophisticated and powerful that they're able to kill enemy fighter jets in air-to-air combat.
It was during the Russian-Ukraine war in 2022, however, that Turkish drones entered the global spotlight. In the early months of the war, Ukrainian forces used them to strike Russian convoys, air defense systems and command posts. The success of these drones was now receiving international coverage and thus growing global awareness.
Turkish drone manufacturer Baykar that supplies Ukraine.
TB2 has proven itself to be an effective combat drone.
So effective the Ukrainian forces are singing its praises, literally.
Bayraktar. Bayraktar.
In an all-out conflict, Israel's much vaunted Iron Dome and David Sling would face a logistical nightmare they were never built to handle, because Turkey possesses the capability to launch thousands of low-cost, highly sophisticated kamikaze drones alongside its unmanned combat aircraft, and in tandem with its domestic missile program. Turkey wouldn't just try to bypass the Iron Dome, they would saturate it. They would force Israel to deplete its wildly expensive, limited stockpile of interceptor missiles within the first 48 to 72 hours. And once the interceptors run dry, Israel's critical infrastructure, its power grids, its desalination plants, and its military air bases become completely defenseless. And Israel will have absolutely nobody to turn to. Certainly not the Americans, who won't risk throwing their powerful NATO ally and the entire NATO alliance under the bus to save a worthless Israel. And don't expect the Europeans to come to Israel's rescue either, given they have grown dependent on Turkey for their own security and defense needs. Western countries also know that Turkey has the industrial capacity, the manpower, and domestic military supply chains to wage a war of attrition for years, whereas Israel simply does not. The myth of Israeli invincibility is just that, a myth. It is a house of cards held up entirely by Western diplomatic cover and American taxpayer billions. But if Turkey ever decides that red lines have been crossed past the point of no return, its military will shatter that Zionist myth once and for all. And while we're on the topic of survival, we kindly request your help, remembering that the Israeli lobby successfully pressured YouTube into demonetizing our channel nearly 1 year ago. Therefore, we kindly ask you please support our effort to expose and confront the Zionist lobby and other injustices in the Muslim world by becoming a member of our show at patreon.com/CJ Werleman. We can't produce, sustain and grow this show without your help, and we offer exclusive content and other benefits to those who do. So whether you're watching or listening, wherever you are, stay blessed.